Hey guys, enjoy these new 20 stories. We hope you enjoy them. Let us know your thoughts. And as always, most of you listening aren't subscribed, so please smash that subscribe button and hit that like button too. It's free and does so much for us. We're forever grateful. Now to the stories.
I don't usually talk about this kind of stuff, mostly because people either think I'm lying or they just laugh it off like I'm exaggerating. But I swear, everything I'm about to say happened exactly how I remember it. If I'm being honest, I still double check my locks every night and keep my phone on silent just in case she tries something again. I haven't been able to really date anyone since, not without thinking about Lily. So yeah, Lily, we dated for a year and a half, which doesn't sound like much, but felt like forever. She was super sweet at first, always texting, calling, sending those little dumb memes that somehow make your day better. She was fun. She'd show up with snacks, plan weird late night drives, always had this energy that pulled me in. For a while I was convinced I'd marry her, but it didn't stay like that. About 6 months in, she started getting weird, like overbearing kind of weird. Would freak out if I didn't text her back in 10 minutes. Once I turned my phone off for a movie, and when I turned it back on, she had called 34 times. 34, not even kidding. She showed up at the theater crying. That kind of set the tone for the rest of the relationship. We broke up after a huge fight about something stupid. I think it was over me going to my friend's birthday party without her. She threw her phone at me, then locked herself in the bathroom and called my mom. Like, full breakdown. I knew that I had to be done. Blocked her the next day. Changed my number a week later. Thought that was the end of it. Fast forward a year, I finally feel normal again. Start going on dates. Nothing serious at first, just trying to meet people. But here's the thing, every single girl I talk to just disappears. First it was Emily. Went to dinner, laughed a lot, said she had a great time. Texted her after and never got a reply. Cool, whatever, ghosting happens. Then it was Jess. Same thing, then Claire. We actually kissed at the end of our date. Said she wanted to hang again. Gone the next day. I thought maybe I was just being awkward or too into it too fast. But it kept happening. I tried using different apps. Even tried changing my profile pic. Nothing helped. Always the same routine. Great date, good vibes, then complete radio silence. It started messing with my head. I even asked one girl straight up why she ghosted. She actually responded. Just said, "You're not who you pretend to be. Don't contact me." I had no idea what that meant. So I started looking into it more. Made a fake profile just to see if anything weird came up when searching my name. And that's when things got creepy. I found a Reddit thread. Someone had posted screenshots of me being an absolute psycho. Messages like, "If you talk to any other guy, I'll find out," or "You belong to me, remember that." There were dozens of them. I recognized the usernames of some of the girls I had gone out with. I felt sick, like genuinely sick. My full name was on the thread. Profile pic matched mine. Even had my dog in it. But it wasn't me. It was someone pretending to be me. Sending messages to any girl who interacted with my real accounts. Took me a couple days of digging, but eventually I figured it out. It was Lily. Somehow she had created at least 3 fake versions of me. Same name, same pics, but with different usernames. She must have scraped all my photos from Instagram and Facebook. She even copied the way I typed. Used the same slang, same emojis, everything. It was like watching someone wear my skin. She'd reach out to any girl who liked my photos or commented. Even before I messaged them, she'd already been in their DMs pretending to be me, then going full stalker mode on them to scare them off. And it worked. Almost every time. I remember I confronted her through an old email I had for her. Didn't yell or accuse, just asked her why. And she responded with this long, rambling message about how I owe her something and how none of these girls deserve me. She called them parasites. She said they were only interested in what they could take from me, not who I really was. That she was the only one who understood me. And the weirdest part, she ended the email by saying, "You'll thank me when you're ready." Like she really believed she was helping me. I reported everything to the apps and the police, but honestly, no one cared. Apps took the profiles down, but new ones would show up within days. Police said unless she directly threatened me, they couldn't really do much. I felt like I was living in this invisible cage she built around me. Every time I tried to move forward, she'd just quietly wreck it before I even noticed. I stopped dating after that, deleted everything, made all my stuff private, changed my number again, told my friends to keep their accounts locked down, and for a while it seemed like she backed off. Until last week, I got a random email from a girl named Rachel. Said she was sorry things didn't work out, but she appreciated the time we spent together. I had no idea who she was, never met her, never messaged her. She attached screenshots. Same routine. I had messaged her, said I wanted to meet, then later sent her angry texts about her being ungrateful and disloyal, all fake. And then, right there in one of the screenshots, was a picture of me sleeping, in my bed, curtains drawn. I don't even know how she got that photo. I live alone. I haven't seen Lily in over a year, not in person anyway. But I swear on everything, that picture wasn't old. I had that exact same shirt on last Friday night. She must have been in my apartment. I changed the locks the next day, got cameras, called the cops again, but I know how this ends. She's not going to stop. She's not sending threats. She's not showing up yelling or breaking windows. She's just always there, quietly pulling strings, making sure I stay alone. And worst part is she's good at it. I always thought those stories you see online of people secretly living in walls or attics were fake. Like, you got right, someone's just been squatting in your place and you didn't notice. Dumb. But then it happened to me. And now every time I hear a noise above me or see something moved, my chest tightens up like it's happening all over again. It started after Sean and I broke up. We'd been together just over 2 years. He was charming in that kind of laid-back, overly confident way that makes you ignore the red flags early on. The kind of guy who's good at talking his way out of everything. Always knew what to say when I got upset. Always had some story to make himself the victim. They don't even remember the exact moment I started realizing how weird he was. It was more like a slow drip. A weird comment here, a lie there of little things that didn't add up. But by the end, I was done. Completely over it. The breakup wasn't explosive or anything. We argued, I told him it was done, and he stormed out. I didn't see him again after that, not for a while. So my apartment was this small second-floor unit over a garage. Cozy but old. The kind of place where things creak for no reason and the heater groans like it's alive. I'd lived there for almost a year by the time we broke up, and Sean used to crash there a lot, so yeah, he had a spare key. I honestly forgot about it. About 2 weeks after the breakup, I started noticing stuff. Small stuff, like the kitchen light being on in the morning when I swear I turned it off, or the bathroom mirror being foggy when I hadn't showered yet. Stupid little things you brush off at first. I figured I was tired or just distracted. But then I noticed food going missing. Not like full meals or anything dramatic. It was more like a bite out of something, or a few crackers gone from a sleeve. Juice being lower than I remembered. At one point I blamed myself and thought maybe I was just forgetting, but then I started keeping track. I draw a little dot on a milk cap or a mark where I left a bag of chips. And yeah, stuff was moving. I started getting paranoid, checked my locks every night, made sure my windows were shut. I even put a sticky note on the inside of my door to see if it would get disturbed. Nothing ever looked tampered with. No sign of a break-in. The worst part was how my cat started acting. She'd just stare at the ceiling sometimes, not in a cute, curious way. She'd sit there and fixate, like she was watching something move. She'd hiss at corners for no reason. One night, she straight up ran out of the kitchen like she'd been scared off. I followed her, didn't see anything, but my stomach was in knots. The turning point came one night when I woke up around 2 a.m. The hallway light was on. I never leave it on. And I could smell something like deodorant. Not mine. Definitely not floral or soft. It was one of those strong, cheap spray-on types. The kind Sean always used. I just stood there in my room, heart pounding, too scared to open the door. I didn't hear anything, but I knew something was off. I grabbed my phone and just waited. Stayed awake the rest of the night, barely even blinking. The next day, I called a friend to come over. Didn't tell them what I was thinking because it sounded stupid, but I needed someone else to be in that apartment. When they got there, I made an excuse to go check the attic. I'd never been up there, didn't even know how. The entrance was one of those ceiling panels in the hallway closet. I got a stepladder and opened it. The smell hit first. Stale air and sweat. My flashlight caught something immediately: blankets, old snacks, a half-empty water bottle, wrappers, a pillow. There were even some of my clothes shoved in the corner. I froze, Just stood there staring at it. It wasn't just a hiding spot. Someone had been living up there. My heart was in my throat. I backed down the ladder and locked myself in my bedroom. Called the cops and just sat there until they came. When they showed up and searched the attic, he was gone. But his stuff was still there. My old hoodie. Socks. Some weird little trinkets that made no sense. A photo of us ripped in half, but only my side was left. They said it looked like he'd been sneaking in and out for weeks. Probably only came down at night. The vents in my place are these long rectangular ones that run through the hallway and end into each room. One of them in my bedroom had a little scratch mark on the edge, like it had been moved. I started thinking back on everything, the times I felt watched, the weird dreams I had where I thought someone was standing in the room, waking up feeling off, the cat freaking out. All of it made sense. The worst part, there was a notebook up there, spiral-bound, messy writing, mostly nonsense, but there were dates, my name written over and over, and next to one of the dates he wrote, "She smiled today." I moved out that week, stayed with a friend until I found a new place across town. Never went back for most of my stuff. I didn't want it. I don't know what he was planning. Maybe nothing. Maybe just watching. Maybe waiting for something. All I know is he was up there, above me, for weeks, probably watching me through those vents, listening, sneaking down while I slept. And what messes with my head the most is thinking about how close he had to be, how quiet he had to move, how I never once heard him. I haven't seen him since. No messages, no sightings, just silence. But every now and then I swear I hear something shift above me, even though I don't live there anymore. I honestly thought it was over Mia. It had been like 7, maybe 8 months since we split, and I hadn't talked to her in forever. No texts, no weird run-ins, no mutual friend drama, just silence, which felt weird at first but then kind of peaceful. We had a rough breakup, constant arguing, her accusing me of cheating every other week, even though I literally had zero time or energy to be seeing anyone else. The last few months of us together felt more like babysitting than dating. She'd go through my phone, check my followers, even started keeping tabs on what time I went to sleep. When I ended it, she cried for like an hour and then stormed out. Blocked me everywhere. And honestly, I was cool with that. I needed the space. Fast forward to a random Thursday night. I'm bored, alone, and I re-download a dating app I hadn't used in months. Mostly just to scroll and waste time. Not even planning to meet anyone yet, just kind of testing the waters again. It was like clockwork. Swipe, swipe, nope, swipe. And then this girl popped up. Her name was Lonnie. Dark-haired, bright smile. The kind of profile that looked normal, but not overly staged. Said she liked horror movies, thrift stores, and dogs. Didn't feel fake, which was rare. I swiped right, half expecting nothing. She matched with me instantly. We started talking that night. Nothing crazy deep. Just banter. She was funny, kind of sarcastic, knew a weird amount about movies. And there was something about the way she talked that felt familiar, not in a bad way, just familiar. But I chalked it up to coincidence. People who text a lot start to sound similar, right? We kept talking for weeks, like every day. Not just small talk either. We had full-on combos about dumb childhood stuff, our worst jobs, food we hated for no reason. And yeah, eventually there was some flirting. Not over the top, but definitely more than just friends. I didn't feel weird about it, not once, which probably sounds dumb in hindsight, but she felt real, normal. The only weird part was that she never wanted to FaceTime. Said her camera was cracked, which was believable. Also never posted anything recent on her socials, just older pics. Still, I didn't press it. People are private sometimes. After about a month, we decided to meet. Just casual, coffee shop during the day. Public, low effort, no pressure. I told her I'd be there around 1 p.m. on Saturday. She said cool. She'd wear a red jacket. I got there a little early. Ordered something basic and sat near the window. I kept checking the door, expecting to see the girl from the pictures walk in. After 10 minutes, someone finally came through wearing a red jacket. But it wasn't Lonnie. It was Mina, my actual ex. At first, I thought I was seeing things, like maybe I was just losing it. But no, it was her. Same walk, saying weird way she fidgets with her sleeves, but her hair was dyed darker. She had bangs. Makeup was heavier. She looked different, but not enough to hide who she was. I just sat there, completely frozen. She walked straight up to my table and sat down like it was totally normal, like this wasn't insane. Then she said something that made my stomach twist. She looked at me, smiled like she'd won something, and told me she just needed to see if I'd cheat on her. Not kidding. Those exact words. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, mouth open, trying to process what was happening. She had made an entire fake identity. Talked to me every day for weeks. Learned new things about me. Laughed at my dumb stories. All just to see if I'd agree to meet someone else, when we weren't even together. She started explaining everything like she was proud of it. Said she created the profile just to test me. That she was convinced I had been cheating back when we were together and just wanted to prove it now. Said she even bought a wig to match the old pictures she used. Some of the photos were from her old Facebook that I hadn't seen in years. She even admitted to photoshopping them a bit. I still couldn't say anything. My mouth was dry. The barista called someone's name behind me and I jumped like I'd been slapped. I just kept thinking about how much time and energy she put into this whole thing. How she must have sat there day after day pretending to be someone else, smiling at my texts, keeping up with the fake story. All of it just to catch me in something I wasn't even doing. Then she asked me why I agreed to meet her, like really asked with this look on her face that wasn't sad or mad. It was more curious, like she was genuinely confused why I moved on. It was one of the creepiest parts of all of it, like she wasn't even trying to make me feel bad. Just wanted to understand why I wasn't still in love with her. I stood up without saying a word, walked straight out, blocked the fake account, blocked her number again, blocked her email too just in case. But she still messaged me from random numbers after that, short things like, hope your coffee was good, or you smile more with her. I never replied, changed my number eventually. And for the record, I didn't cheat. I never even crossed that line. I thought I was talking to someone new. Someone who might have actually been good for me. But nah, it was just Mina. Again, like a glitch in my life that won't go away. Every time someone matches with me now, I stare at their profile way too long. Check for signs. Overthink every response. Because what hits her again? Which is just waiting, watching, pretending to be someone else just to see what I'll do. People think they'd notice something like that, but you don't. Not when the mask is good enough. I thought my dog was losing it. For real. He's this old golden retriever named Max. Mellow as anything, barely barks unless the mailman steps on the porch. I've had him since I was 21, and he's always been super chill. But then he started acting off. It was little things at first, just pacing more at night, ears up like he heard something I didn't. Then it turned into barking, loud, angry barking, always around 3 or 4 a.m. Sometimes at the door, sometimes at the corner of a living room. I'd get up, turn on the lights, check the locks, nothing. Just shadows and quiet. This went on for like 2 weeks. I barely slept. He even tried sleeping on the couch a few times just to calm him down. During the day, he'd be normal again. Playful, relaxed, but the nights kept getting worse. He started growling low, like the kind of growl where his lips twitch and his eyes go wide. I knew something was up, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. See, the thing is, this all started not long after Tyler got hit with a restraining order. Tyler was my ex. We dated for about a year and a half, and it was good at the start. He had that kind of charming energy that makes you ignore all the small warning signs. The weird jealousy, the constant checking up, the little mood swings that turn into screaming matches. I broke up with him after he showed up at my work one day and started accusing me of cheating on him with a coworker who literally has a boyfriend and a baby. He blocked my car in the parking lot and refused to let me leave until I explained everything. Cops came. He left before they showed, but that's when I filed for the restraining order. I got it, because even before that incident, there were texts, calls, weird threats hidden in I miss you messages. I hadn't seen him in person since that day in the parking lot. I thought that was it. Finally, done. So when Max started acting like he was sensing something, Tyler didn't even cross my mind at first. I thought maybe it was raccoons or something stupid outside. I live in a small house near the edge of town, kind of backed up to a wooded area, not remote, just quiet. And honestly, I liked it that way. But then one morning, I noticed the doggy door was unlocked. Max hasn't used that thing in months. He's gotten too old to push through it, and I usually keep it sealed shut. But that morning, it was unlatched. I didn't even think much of it until I found the small latch broken off, like it had been popped open from the outside. I checked the backyard gate. Locked. No footprints in the mud, no signs of anyone sneaking around. I started to feel like maybe I was the one going crazy. So I ordered this cheap little security camera online. The kind you just stick in the corner of the room and connect to your phone. Didn't even tell anyone about it. Set it up in the living room, aimed right at the back door. I figured if anything, maybe I'd catch a raccoon or something messing with the flap. That night, Max freaked out again, barking so loud I shot awake like I'd been punched. I grabbed my phone, opened the cam app, and just froze. I couldn't believe what I was watching. There was someone in my living room. They had come in through the doggy door, not even fast or sneaky, like they'd done it before. They crouched down and just sat next to Max, petting him, like nothing was wrong, like they belonged there, and Max, he didn't growl. He just kind of whimpered and backed up. It was so weird seeing him act scared like that. He's never been scared of people. The figure leaned in real close to his ear and started whispering. Couldn't hear it, obviously, but it went on for way too long. Then they looked up, straight at the camera. Even with the bad lighting and the shadows and the hoodie pulled over their head, I knew it was Tyler. No question. The way he moves, the build, the jawline. It was him. I paused the footage, zoomed in, stared at it for like 20 minutes. It made my stomach twist up into knots. He had actually been in my house. Not outside, not watching. Inside. Crouched in my living room at 4 a.m, whispering to my dog like they were having a secret conversation. I called the cops right away. They came out, took a statement, said they'd look into it, whatever, but nothing happened. They said since I had a camera now to keep it rolling, call again if he showed up. But then I started thinking about all the nights before. How many times had he done this already? How long had he been coming in while I slept? The thought of it made me sick, like actually sick. I couldn't even stay in the house that night. Packed a bag and went to stay at my cousin's place. Took Max with me, even though he was clearly exhausted and just wanted to sleep. A few days later, the cops came back. Turns out, Tyler had been living 2 blocks away the entire time, under a fake name, renting out someone's basement through a roommate ad. They found stuff in his room that belonged to me. A sock, a photo, my old hairbrush. All things I didn't even realize were missing. They didn't arrest him right away. Not until they got a warrant for the footage. Even then, it took forever. And when they finally picked him up, he didn't say anything. Not one word. Just stared at the wall like none of it mattered. I moved out a month later. New town. New locks. No doggy door. Max is doing better now. Sleeps through the night again. Doesn't bark at shadows anymore. But I still think about it. About what he whispered. About how Max must have felt hearing him every night. About how long it was going on before I noticed. And most of all, what might have happened if I hadn't set up that camera. I should have known from the beginning that something was off with Polly. But when you're in it, when things are still new and exciting, you ignore stuff. You explain it away. You tell yourself people just love differently. It starts with little things, like her asking who I was texting every time my phone lit up, or asking for a rundown of every second of my day when I got home. And not in a cute, clingy way, like genuinely wanting details. Where I went, who I talked to, what they smelled like. Yeah, that was the first weird part, the smell thing. She'd say she could tell if someone was lying by how they smelled, not like cologne or sweat. She'd say emotional stuff had a scent. She could sniff out guilt or attraction. I used to laugh it off and just let her talk, but looking back, that was probably where everything started getting twisted. We dated for almost a year, and during that time, Polly got more intense with her paranoia. I've never been a cheater, not even close, but she made it feel like I was always 1 second away from slipping, like she was just waiting for proof. And then she came up with her little routine. It started after I came home from work one night, just a normal Tuesday. I remember I walked in, dropped my bag, kicked off my shoes, and headed to the kitchen to grab water. And when I came back to the bedroom, she was holding my underwear, sniffing it, just standing there, breathing in deep like she was testing it for something. I froze. She looked at me dead serious and said she was making sure I hadn't been with anyone else. I thought she was joking, I really did. I laughed and said something dumb like, "You can't be serious." But she was. She went on this rant about how she could smell another woman if one had been near me. Not perfume. Not lotion. She meant specifically down there. Like, she thought she had some superhuman scent radar and could detect if I'd been near anyone else's body. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to humiliate her, but also I was freaked out. She wasn't embarrassed. Not at all. She acted like this was a completely normal thing couples did. Like it was part of trust building or something. From that point on, it happened every time I got home. Didn't matter if I was gone for 5 hours or 15 minutes. I'd walk in, she'd hug me, maybe act normal for a bit. Then later when I changed clothes, she'd always grab my underwear. Sometimes it was subtle, like she'd grab them with the laundry and do a little sniff as she folded. Other times it was direct. She'd hold them up, sniff deep, and just kind of stare at me, waiting for some reaction. It messed with my head. I started getting anxious any time I left the house. Like, what if I brushed past a woman at the grocery store and now my clothes somehow smelled weird? What if I gave someone a hug and now I've got mystery scent on me and she's gonna go off? I double check my clothes, avoid people, sometimes even shower at the gym just to avoid bringing home anything that might trigger her. She started accusing me of things that never happened. Like once, I came home from grabbing coffee and she lost it. Said she smelled coconut oil and vanilla and that meant I had been near a freshly showered woman. She was dead serious. Kept asking who she was, if it was someone from work, if I had taken her to my car. I hadn't even spoken to anyone that day except the barista, and she was like 60. The worst part was, she genuinely believed she was right, like she thought her nose was some kind of lie detector. And if I denied it, that just meant I was lying. If I got defensive, that was proof. If I laughed it off, that meant I didn't respect her. I couldn't win. Things got worse when she started going through my laundry when I wasn't even home. I caught her once. I had left to run errands, came back early, and found her in the living room with my laundry basket. Not washing anything. Just sorting through boxers and socks. She didn't even act weird about it. Said she was checking things. I told her it had to stop. That she was crossing a line, she cried. Told me it was the only way she could feel safe in the relationship. And for a minute, I actually felt bad. I thought maybe she'd been cheated on before. Maybe there was some trauma I didn't know about, so I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Big mistake. Not long after that, she started showing up at places uninvited. I'd say I was going to grab groceries and she'd magically be there. I'd tell her I was going to hang with a friend, and she'd text me a pic of my car from the other side of the parking lot. She even waited outside my work once just to surprise me. I know she was watching to make sure I wasn't talking to anyone. I started to feel trapped in my own life. Like every move I made was being monitored. I stopped seeing people, stopped doing anything that wasn't work or home. And even then, I didn't feel safe. Not because I thought she'd hurt me physically, but because everything was being twisted. I'd say one thing and she'd take it 5 different ways and make it into something it wasn't. The final straw was when I caught her trying to go through my stuff while I was asleep. I passed out on the couch and woke up to see her digging through my gym bag in the dark. No lights on. Just crouched there, going through socks and clothes like she was looking for evidence of a crime. I didn't say anything. Just laid there pretending to sleep, heart pounding. The next day I ended it. It wasn't dramatic, no screaming. I just told her we were done and that I couldn't live like that anymore. She begged, cried, said she'd stop, promised she'd go to therapy. But I knew she wouldn't. And honestly, I was too tired to care anymore. She texted me for weeks after that. At one point, she even sent me a voice memo of her crying and saying she missed my scent. Like it was supposed to be sweet. It wasn't. I blocked her, changed my number, even changed gyms just in case. Sometimes I still wonder if she's out there sniffing someone else's underwear. Maybe doing the same thing to another guy who thinks it's just a cute quirk at first. Maybe she's learned to hide it better. But every now and then when I fold laundry, I catch myself checking if anything smells weird, and I hate that she did that to me. I moved to a new city to start fresh. After a messy breakup with Timothy, I needed a clean slate, somewhere I wasn't haunted by old memories. I found a cozy apartment in a quiet neighborhood and decided to join a little theater group. It seemed like a good way to meet people and get involved in something creative. I had always loved acting, and this could be my chance to rediscover myself. The group was small but welcoming. We met twice a week in a modest rehearsal space above a bookstore. The walls were lined with shelves of old scripts and theater memorabilia. The atmosphere was warm and inviting, a stark contrast to the coldness I had felt in my previous life. One evening, after a particularly long rehearsal, I stayed behind to help clean up. As I was gathering some stray scripts, I noticed a folder tucked behind a stack of papers on a table. It was unmarked, just a plain manila folder. Curious, I opened it. Inside was a script. At first glance, it seemed like any other amateur play, dialogue heavy, a bit melodramatic, but nothing out of the ordinary. But as I flipped through the pages, something caught my eye. The characters' names were eerily familiar. The settings described places I recognized. And then I saw it, a scene that mirrored a private argument I had had with Timothy. Word for word. My heart raced. I scanned the rest of the script. There were more scenes, details of our relationship, our fights, our conversations. It was all there. The script was a detailed account of our entire relationship written as a play. I felt a chill run down my spine. How could this be? I hadn't told anyone about my past with Timothy. I hadn't even mentioned his name to anyone in the group. Yet here it was laid out in black and white. I looked around the room, half expecting him to step out from behind a curtain or emerge from the shadows. But the room was empty. I was alone. I took the script home with me, unable to leave it behind. I needed to understand how this had happened. I read through it again and again, each page sending a wave of dread over me. The level of detail was uncanny. It was as if Timothy had been watching me, listening to my conversations, documenting every moment of my life. The next rehearsal, I couldn't focus. I kept glancing around, wondering if he was there watching me. I tried to shake off the feeling, but it lingered. Over the following weeks, I noticed strange things happening. I would find my water bottle moved slightly to the left on the table. My jacket would be hanging on a different hook than I remembered. Small, insignificant changes, but enough to make me question my sanity. Then, one evening, I arrived early for rehearsal and found a note on the table. It was handwritten, the ink smudged as if written in haste. It simply said, "I see you." My blood ran cold. I knew then that Timothy was here. He had infiltrated the group, watched me, learned my routines. He was closer than I had ever imagined. I confronted the group leader, explaining my concerns. She was understanding but skeptical. She promised to keep an eye out but didn't seem to take the situation seriously. I couldn't blame her. It sounded unbelievable, even to me. Who would believe that an ex would go to such lengths to haunt someone? I could barely believe it myself. The next day, I received a package at my apartment. Inside was another script, this one even more detailed than the last. It included descriptions of my daily activities, my interactions with the group members, even my thoughts and feelings. It was as if Timothy had been living inside my head. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook as I read through the pages. There were lines I had never spoken aloud, conversations I had never shared with anyone. How was this possible? Then, the worst part, in the final scene of the script, Timothy was the narrator. He spoke directly to me, telling me how much he loved me, how he couldn't bear to lose me, how he would always be there. The words felt like a threat, a promise that he would never let me go. I couldn't take any more. The paranoia, the fear, the constant sense of being watched, it was too much. I packed my things that night, gathered my belongings, and moved out of the apartment. I couldn't stay there, not with the knowledge that Timothy could be anywhere. I had to leave to escape, to get away from this nightmare. I moved to another city, far enough away to feel like a fresh start. I found a new apartment, settled into a new routine, and tried to forget. I even joined a new theater group, hoping that this time I could truly begin again. But the scripts didn't stop. They came one after the other, each more invasive than the last. The details were so accurate, so precise. It was as if Timothy was living inside my skin, reading my every thought. The scripts described my new life, where I went, who I talked to, even the smallest things, like what I ate for lunch or the books I checked out from the library. One script even described a conversation I had with a fellow actor, something so trivial and private I couldn't understand how he could have known. But there it was on the page. I called the police, but they couldn't help me. The letters were always postmarked from different places, never traceable, and there was no solid evidence of a crime. Timothy was careful, too careful. He never left anything behind that could be used against him. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to disappear. I changed my phone number, deleted my social media accounts, and moved again, this time to a small town where no one knew me. I adopted a new name, a new identity, and I started over once more. I don't know where Timothy is now. I don't know if he's still writing, still watching, still stalking. But I do know this: I will never be the same. I will never feel safe again. And I will never trust a script. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get involved in a messy breakup. I mean, who does? Breakups are supposed to be clean, simple, a mutual decision made after some awkward conversations and a few tearful goodbyes. But Charlotte had a way of making everything feel like a scene from a movie, intense, dramatic, and completely unpredictable. We met at a mutual friend's party. She was the life of the event, always laughing, always the center of attention. I was drawn to her energy, her confidence. She seemed like the type of person who would grab life by the reins and make it her own. We hit it off immediately, exchanging jokes, talking about our favorite bands, our shared love for obscure documentaries. What started as a casual fling quickly turned into something more serious, and I found myself swept up in it all. But as time went on, I began to notice things. Small things at first. Charlotte would show up unannounced at my apartment, claiming she was just in the neighborhood. She'd send texts every hour, asking where I was and who I was with. I brushed it off as her just being clingy, as though it was a quirk I could get used to. After all, she was the life of the party, vibrant and full of energy. Why wouldn't she want to know everything about me? But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she was controlling me, that she was weaving herself deeper into my life than I was comfortable with. The tipping point came one evening when I was out with some friends. We were at a bar, talking and laughing, when I got a text from Charlotte. "I'm outside. Where are you?" I told myself it was just her being spontaneous again, so I went out to check on her. There she was, standing by my car, looking furious. She didn't even acknowledge me at first. When I asked what was going on, she just stared at me, her eyes wide with anger. She didn't speak for a long time, just stood there, seething. I asked again, "Charlotte, what's wrong?" And then she snapped. "I know you're with someone else," she shouted, her voice raw and trembling. I can feel it. I tried to calm her down, but the damage was already done. It was clear. This was not the person I wanted to be with. I had to get out. I ended things right then and there. I told her I needed space, that we were better off apart. She begged, she pleaded, she promised to change. But I stood firm. I thought that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. A few days later, I came out to my car after work. The sun had barely set, and the streets were quiet. But as I approached my car, I stopped dead in my tracks. Something was wrong. My heart raced as I saw the mess, my entire car, covered in something brown. At first, I thought it was mud. But as I got closer, the stench hit me. Feces, my entire car, windows, mirrors, door handles, smeared with human waste. I stood frozen, unable to process what I was seeing. Who would do something like this? How far did someone have to go to do something so vile, so disgusting? Then the realization hit me like a punch in the gut. Charlotte. I couldn't believe it. I thought we were done. I thought it was over. But no, she had found some twisted way to reach into my life again and leave her mark, a reminder that she could still control me, even after we parted ways. I stood there for what felt like hours, trying to comprehend what had just happened. I didn't know whether to laugh at the absurdity or cry at the violation. This was no prank. This was a statement, a declaration that she could reach into my life and leave her mark, no matter how disgusting. She could do whatever she wanted, and there was nothing I could do about it. I called the police, but they couldn't do much. It took a report, but there was no evidence, no witnesses. Just a messed up car and a lot of questions. I didn't even have any security cameras to back up my story. It was just me and a car covered in human waste. Nothing more. The damage was extensive. The smell lingered for days, no matter how much I cleaned. The upholstery, the door panels, everything had to be replaced. The stench seeped into the fabric, and no matter what I tried, I couldn't scrub it away. I had to send the car to a specialist to deep clean it. And even then, it still didn't feel like mine. It cost me a small fortune, but the real cost was something I couldn't put a price on. The worst part, though, the worst part was the feeling of violation. The knowledge that someone I had once trusted, had done this to me. It wasn't just a cruel joke or a moment of madness. It was calculated. It was personal. She wanted to ruin me, not just in the moment, but for weeks, months, maybe even longer. Every time I got into my car, every time I caught a glimpse of my car's windows smeared with residue, I was reminded of her anger, of her obsession. But I moved on. I had to. Eventually, I got my life back together. I stopped talking to her, blocked her on social media, and made sure she had no way to contact me. I dated again, met new people, and tried to forget what had happened. But there were always reminders. The smell would sneak up on me at times, the strange feeling that someone was watching me, lurking around the corner. One night, as I was walking to my car, I saw a shadow dart past the street lamp. My heart skipped a beat. I glanced around, but there was no one there. I told myself it was nothing, just my mind playing tricks on me. Yet the feeling wouldn't go away. I'd see cars parked near my building, people I didn't recognize watching from afar. Every time I see a car with a smear on the window or a stain on the seat, I'm reminded of what happened. The reminder isn't just the mess, though. It's the anger, the obsession, the lengths she was willing to go to prove a point. And now I wonder, how far would she go next time? Would she show up at my new place? Would she find a new way to get under my skin? I don't know, but one thing's for sure. I'll never be the same, and I'll never fully trust someone again. Not after this. After James and I broke up, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He had always been secret about certain things, and after we ended things, I started to wonder if there was more to our relationship than I had known. James and I had been together for nearly 2 years. At first, everything was perfect. He was charming, attentive, and everything I thought I wanted in a partner. But after a while, I began to notice things, little things that didn't quite add up. He was protective of his phone, never let me see his computer screen, and he frequently disappeared for hours without explanation. He would brush off my questions with a smile and a joke, but it always left me with a sense of unease. Still, I tried to push these thoughts aside. He was a private person, and maybe I was just overthinking it. When we broke up, those little oddities started to feel more significant. Something inside me told me there was more to the story, more that wasn't being told. The one thing that always stood out to me was his storage unit. He had it for as long as I knew him, but he never let me see inside. He'd always say it was just for his old furniture, boxes of things he didn't have room for, or a place to store items he hadn't gotten around to sorting. But there was something about it, something that made me wonder if he was hiding more than just a few old books and blankets. After our breakup, I found myself driving past the storage facility more often, glancing at the unit, wondering what secrets it held. My curiosity grew, and the more I thought about it, the more I became convinced that I needed to know what was inside. Then one day I saw a sign. The lease had expired, and the unit was up for grabs. I don't know what came over me, but I decided to take a chance. I called the facility pretending to be interested in renting a unit, and asked if I could take a look at the one that had just become available. The manager agreed, and I was in. When I arrived, the manager handed me the key to the unit, explaining that it was the last one available. My heart raced as I approached the door. I had no idea what I was about to find, but I had to know. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The first thing I noticed was the smell. It was musty like old paper and dust, but underneath that there was something else, something faintly familiar. My stomach tightened. It wasn't a smell I could easily place, but it reminded me of James. The familiar scent of his cologne, his laundry detergent, the faint smell of his car after a long road trip. I shook off the thought and turned on the light. The unit was small, but it was packed with items. There were boxes stacked high, old furniture covered in dust, and various knickknacks scattered around. At first glance, it looked like nothing out of the ordinary. Just the typical clutter one might expect from a storage unit. But as I began to explore further, something caught my eye. In the far corner of the unit was a small table, covered in what looked like photographs. I stepped closer, my heart pounding in my chest. The closer I got, the clearer the pictures became. They were of James and me. Some were from our trips together, others from holidays, and a few were candid shots of us laughing, smiling, happy. It all seemed so innocent, so normal. But then I noticed something more disturbing. Surrounding the photos were locks of hair, some of mine, some of his. They were tied together with ribbon, carefully placed around the frames like a twisted kind of decoration. My breath caught in my throat. The hair was meticulously arranged, as if he had been saving it, collecting it, keeping it for some unknown reason. This was more than just a collection of memories. It was a shrine. I stepped back, my mind reeling, trying to process what I was seeing. My eyes scanned the rest of the room, and that's when I noticed more disturbing details. Receipts from restaurants we had visited, movie tickets from dates we had gone on, even napkins with our initials written on them. Everything was meticulously organized, as if he had been keeping track of our every move. But the most chilling discovery came when I spotted a stack of cassette tapes in the corner of the room. They were neatly arranged, labeled with what appeared to be dates and events. I reached for one, my hands shaking, and read the label. Our first date. My stomach dropped. I didn't know why, but I felt an overwhelming need to listen to what was on that tape. I had to know what was on it. I found a cassette player in one of the boxes and inserted the tape. As it started to play, I recognized our voices almost immediately. The recording was of our first date. Every word, every laugh, every pause. It was as if he had been recording our conversations all along, preserving them for some unknown purpose. I continued to listen, unable to stop myself. The next date was labeled Late Night Talks. I pressed play again and was immediately greeted by the sound of our voices, discussing everything from our dreams and fears to the mundane details of our everyday lives. Our arguments were recorded too, small disagreements, moments of tension between us. Everything was there, preserved in his private collection. It felt like I was hearing a side of him I had never known, a side I hadn't seen during our relationship. I couldn't take it anymore. I shut off the tape recorder and stumbled out of the unit, my mind racing. I didn't know what to think, what to feel. I felt sick, betrayed, but also strangely violated. This was a side of James I never knew existed. Who was he really? What kind of person collects locks of hair, receipts, and audio recordings of intimate moments? I never spoke to him again after that day. I couldn't. The man I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. Someone who had hidden a dark obsession beneath the surface of our relationship. I don't know what James was planning with all those tapes, all those mementos. Maybe he wanted to hold on to me even after we were apart. Maybe he wanted to relive those moments in his own twisted way. But I do know this. I will never look at a storage unit the same way again. I will never look at my past the same way again. James had left his mark on me, one I would never be able to erase. As much as I tried to move on, I would never forget the collection he had left behind, his version of us, preserved in time, waiting to be discovered. I still can't believe what happened. I still don't know how to process it. It's like something out of a movie, but worse. If you told me this was my life a year ago, I would have laughed at you and said, no way. That would never happen to me. But it did, and I'm still trying to figure out what the hell went wrong. So let me take you back. My name's Ethan, and I'm not some saint, but I swear I wasn't asking for any of this. I mean, I had a pretty regular life before Tara came into the picture. I didn't have the perfect family, but I had a dad I got along with, a roof over my head, and I was doing okay in school. I had a girlfriend, a few friends, a solid routine. Then there was Tara. She wasn't just some girl I dated, though. No, she was something else. She wasn't the type of person to just let go. And I should have known that from the start. I just didn't see it coming. Tara and I dated for almost 2 years. We were good for a while. She was fun, smart, and we had this kind of connection that made me think we could make it long term. But after a while, things started to get weird. She got possessive, jealous. The kind of crazy where she'd show up at my school just to surprise me, or sent me a million texts if I didn't respond right away. Yeah, I should have dumped her then, but I didn't. I guess I was too dumb to realize how deep it was going. But the moment things really started to turn was the day I broke up with her. Honestly, it wasn't even that dramatic. We were at her place, and I told her I thought it was over. She cried, she yelled, she begged. But at the end of the day, I was firm. I couldn't do it anymore. I'd been thinking about it for weeks, and I knew it was the right thing. I figured she'd eventually move on, and we could both move forward. But I was wrong. I never thought she'd take it this far. Not in a million years. A couple of months after we split, my dad sat me down one evening. He'd been acting weird for a while, but that night, his expression was serious. He told me he had something to tell me. I remember thinking it was about his work or something. It never crossed my mind that it was about Tara. Then he said it. He was getting married. My first thought was, who the hell would marry him? My dad's not bad looking, But he's older, a little out of shape, and definitely not the type to grab attention. But I just asked, "Who's the lucky lady?" Figuring it was some woman he met at work or something. And when he said, "Tara," my blood went cold. I honestly thought I misheard him. Like how? Why? She had been my ex-girlfriend. Why would she marry my dad? And more importantly, why would he marry her? It took a while for it to fully sink in. Tara. My ex. The same Tara who wouldn't leave me alone after we broke up. The same Tara who used to go through my stuff when I wasn't looking. The same Tara who got way too obsessed with me. It didn't make sense. I was angry. Not just mad at my dad for marrying her, but furious at Tara for what she was clearly doing. It was obvious now. She was playing the long game, getting close to my dad, hitting into his good graces. It wasn't about love, it was about power. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Tara wanted to become my stepmom. She was doing this as some twisted form of revenge. I hadn't realized how deep it went, but it was clear now. She wanted control. She wanted to hurt me, to have some twisted authority over my life. Things got real awkward real quick. The wedding happened fast too. A few weeks after my dad told me they were married, I couldn't stop it. It was like watching a train crash and knowing you couldn't get off the tracks. I had to pretend like everything was fine, but nothing was fine. It felt like my whole world had just flipped upside down. When Tara moved in, things got even weirder. It wasn't just the usual awkwardness of having your ex as a stepmom. No, Tara took it further. She started to act like she was the one in charge. She would tell me what I could and couldn't do in the house. She'd show up at my school uninvited to check in on me. It was like she had this weird hold over my dad, like he couldn't see what she was doing. And that's when it hit me. Tara wasn't just controlling me, she was controlling him too. She made everything uncomfortable. I couldn't have friends over without her turning it into a family event. If I tried to sneak out, she'd somehow always know. I couldn't have a conversation with my dad without Tara jumping in, like she was the one calling the shots. It wasn't about love anymore. It was about domination. And I couldn't escape. I'll never forget the night it all came to a head. My dad had gone out of town for work, leaving me alone with Tara. I figured it would be just another night of her making passive-aggressive comments and trying to control everything I did. But that night, it felt different. Tara was more persistent. She kept coming into my room, knocking, asking me if I wanted to hang out or if I needed anything. I kept telling her I was fine, but she wouldn't leave. And then she did something that scared the hell out of me. She locked the door behind her. She sat down in my bed and started talking, but it wasn't about anything normal. It was about us. About how we used to be together and how, now that she was my stepmom, things could be different. She said my dad didn't understand me like she did, that she knew how to take care of me. And for a second, I felt like I was trapped in some twisted nightmare. I didn't know if she was trying to manipulate me or if she genuinely thought we could just pick up where we left off. I tried to stay calm, but I couldn't. It was like she was in my head, controlling every move I made. I knew I had to get out of there, but I couldn't. She stood up, and the look in her eyes made my stomach drop. Tara was no longer the girl I'd once known. She was a stranger, someone who'd manipulated and twisted everything until I felt like I was the crazy one. It was the moment I realized I had to get out of the house, but I didn't know how. And I'll never forget the moment I decided to leave for good. It wasn't just about escaping Tara. It was about escaping everything she made me feel. You hear about crazy exes, the ones who do weird stuff after a breakup, but this was next level. Honestly, I don't even know how to explain it without sounding like I'm making it up, but trust me, I wish I was. So let me start at the beginning. My name's Emma, and this whole thing with Luke started out pretty normal. I was in my senior year of high school, and Luke was a guy I met through mutual friends. He wasn't the kind of guy who immediately stood out, but he was cute enough, funny, and we hit it off. It started as just hanging out, grabbing lunch, the usual stuff. But like most things in high school, it got a little more serious than I was ready for. I'll admit I was kind of into him. He wasn't perfect. He had his flaws, like we all do, but I figured that was just part of growing up, right? We had our fun times, went on dates, went to parties. We made memories. But somewhere along the way, things started to feel off. Luke wasn't just into typical stuff like video games or sports. There was this whole side to him I didn't know about at first. He started talking about hustles and making money fast. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured everyone wanted to make a little extra cash, especially during high school. I didn't judge him for it. But then, one night, I caught him doing something strange. I had stayed over at his place and I was on my phone, mindlessly scrolling through Instagram. His laptop was sitting on the desk across the room, and I guess I was bored enough to glance at the screen. I didn't think anything of it at first, but then I saw it. He was on some weird website. At first, I thought it was just a random site, but then I saw what he was doing. He was selling something. My stomach dropped when I saw it. He was posting pictures of, well, underwear. The ones I had left behind at his place after spending the night a few times. He was selling them. Not washed, not cleaned. Just the stuff I had worn, and he was posting it online for strangers to buy. I froze. I didn't know how to process what I had just seen. The images were so casual, like it was no big deal to him. But for me, my mind was racing trying to make sense of it. I wanted to confront him right then and there, but I couldn't. I just sat there in silence, staring at the screen, feeling like I had just been slapped across the face. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually Luke came back into the room. I don't know if he saw the shock on my face or if he just realized something was wrong, but he immediately closed the laptop and tried to act all calm and collected. That's when I lost it. I started asking questions, but I wasn't even sure what I wanted to know. How could he do that? Why would he do that? Did he think I wouldn't find out? But most of all, I wanted to know why me. Why was I involved in this sick game? He tried to explain himself, but everything he said made it worse. He said it was just a side hustle and that it was easy money. Like that somehow made it okay. He told me he was just doing it for fun, that it was no big deal. But I couldn't understand how he could be so casual about something so disgusting. I wanted to leave right then, but I didn't. I don't know if it was shock or disbelief, but I stayed. Maybe I was hoping he'd apologize and make things right, but of course he didn't. Instead, he just brushed it off like I was overreacting. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't ready to just walk away. Maybe I thought it was a one-time thing. Maybe I thought I could forget about it. But the truth is, I should have left that night. I didn't, and it only got worse. After that, things started to change between us. I couldn't look at him the same way anymore. Every time I saw him, all I could think about was what he'd done. I started feeling uncomfortable around him, like he was hiding something else. And I was right. He was. A few days after that, I started noticing strange things. Little things. Like how he would always look at his phone and smile, like he was in on some secret. He'd take weird phone calls in the middle of the night, ones that he wouldn't let me overhear. And then there were the emails. I found them when I was looking for something on his computer. There were messages from people I didn't know, people I didn't want to know. They were talking about money, shipping addresses, and the items they'd purchased. It was clear as day. Luke had turned this into something way bigger than I could have imagined. It wasn't just a side hustle. He was running some kind of sick business. That was when I knew I had to get out. It wasn't just the pictures anymore. It was the whole thing. Luke was obsessed. This wasn't about making a quick buck. This was about power, control, and something way darker. I started distancing myself from him. I made excuses, told him I needed space, that I needed time to think, but he wasn't having it. It got creepy. He started showing up at places I was hanging out with friends, uninvited. He found ways to sneak around corners to catch me off guard. It was like he was stalking me, watching my every move. Every time I tried to push him away, he'd come back harder. And it wasn't just about the underwear anymore. It was like he needed to prove something. To himself. To me. I don't even know. Finally, I blocked him on everything. Social media, phone, email, you name it. I was done. But Luke wasn't. He kept sending me messages from different numbers, different accounts. He'd leave random comments on my posts, trying to get my attention. It was exhausting. I never told anyone about what he did, about what I had found. I'm not sure why. Maybe I didn't want people to think I was crazy. Maybe I was embarrassed. But now I'm telling you, because if I can warn even one person about what kind of sick, twisted person Luke turned out to be, then maybe it's worth it. I don't know where he is now. I haven't heard from him in months, and I hope I never do. But I know one thing for sure. Once you see the truth behind someone, you can never unsee it. And trust me, once I saw what Luke was capable of, I couldn't unsee it either. Honestly, if someone had told me this story happened to them, I would have thought it was some crazy bad reality TV plot. But here I am, telling you exactly how my ex Sherry completely destroyed my life after we broke up. I don't know if it was pure desperation or just plain malice, but what she did, it wasn't something I could have predicted in a million years. So let me set the scene. It all started when Sherry and I got together. We met at a party during the summer after I graduated. She was the type of girl everyone noticed. Tall, confident, always the center of attention. And yeah, I'll admit I was drawn to her. She had this wild energy about her, and I thought that was something I needed in my life. She wasn't perfect, but who is? She had a few flaws here and there, but nothing I couldn't deal with. We dated for about a year. It was good mostly. We did all the typical stuff. Went out for drinks, hung out with friends, took trips, nothing too crazy. But over time, things started to shift. She started acting like she was entitled to everything I had. I know that sounds dramatic, but it's the truth. It wasn't anything obvious at first, just little things here and there. Asking for money here and there for emergencies, or saying things like, I really want this, but I don't have enough. Can you help me out? It wasn't always that bad, but the more she asked, the less comfortable I felt. Still, I always said yes. She had this way of making you feel guilty if you didn't, and honestly, I was too caught up in her charm to say no. After all, we were in love, right? That's what I kept telling myself. But everything went downhill the day we broke up. It wasn't a huge dramatic fight or anything. In fact, it was one of those situations where we both just kind of agreed it wasn't working. We were still friends, at least that's what I thought. Sure, it sucked, but it wasn't the end of the world. We even promised to stay in touch. But then things got weird. About a week after the breakup, Sherry called me up asking for one last favor. She said she had a problem with her bank account. Apparently, someone had hacked her account and drained it, and she needed money to cover the bills. She sounded panicked and I felt bad. Honestly, I did. I didn't want her to be in a bad place, even though we were no longer together. I told myself, hey, we're still cool, right? It's just a little help. Big mistake. I transferred her the money. It wasn't a huge amount, a couple $100, just enough to keep her afloat, she said. The next day she called me again, this time asking for more. She said her situation had gotten worse and that the money she had received didn't cover everything. I had this sinking feeling, but I didn't want to be an asshole, so I transferred more. This time, I hesitated a little, but still, I did it. She was in trouble, and I didn't want her to feel abandoned. I was such an idiot. Things started getting strange after that. She would text me at random times, telling me she was broke and needed help. A few times, she even said things like, I feel so lost without you. It was manipulative, but at the time, I didn't realize it. I kept giving her money because I felt like I owed her something. It felt like I was doing the right thing, like I was a good guy. But soon, I was digging myself into a hole. A month passed, and I still hadn't really questioned why she needed so much help. Then one day, I noticed something odd. I was at a bar with some friends, and I saw a post on social media. It was Sherry, out at some club, looking like she was living it up. She was in a brand new dress, sitting with friends, laughing, having a good time. The only problem, just 2 days before that, she had called me asking for emergency money because she couldn't afford rent. That's when the first red flag popped up in my head. I thought it was a fluke, but then the more I thought about it, the more things didn't add up. I started checking my bank statements. The amount of money I had sent her didn't seem to match what she was telling me. It was more than I had given her, and that was when I started realizing something was off. I confronted her about it, asking her where the money had gone. At first, she denied everything, but when I pushed harder, she came clean, at least partially. She admitted that she had been using the money I sent her for other things, though she didn't go into detail. That was it for me. I was done. But that wasn't the end of it. Not by a long shot. A couple of weeks later, I started noticing more weird stuff. My bank account started showing weird transactions, ones I didn't recognize. Small charges mostly, like subscriptions to online services I'd never signed up for. It didn't take long before I realized what was happening. Somehow, Sherry had gotten access to my bank account information and was draining it. She'd been using my details to sign up for stuff, buying things for herself. I had no idea how she did it. Whether it was from when I let her use my phone to check something, or if she had hacked into my account somehow, I don't know. But what I did know was that she was systematically stealing everything I had. I'll never forget the day I checked my savings account. It was empty. I had worked my ass off for months to save that money, and in a matter of weeks, it was gone. She took it all, every last cent. It felt like I was hit by a freight train. I wanted to believe I had been mistaken, but there was no way around it. She had taken everything, and there was nothing I could do about it. I tried calling her, texting her, even showing up at her place, but she was gone. Vanished. She had completely disappeared. I even checked her social media again, but she had deleted everything. No trace of her anywhere. What's even crazier is that I don't even know if she was ever really in trouble, or if she just planned all of this from the start. I don't know if the whole money for rent story was just part of her plan, or if she was lying to me the entire time. I'll never get the answers. All I know is that she wiped me out, emotionally and financially, and walked away without a second thought. In the end, I learned a hard lesson. I never saw the signs because I didn't want to. But trust me, after everything that happened, I'll never let anyone get that close again. Not without knowing exactly who they are first. And honestly, I don't think I'll ever trust anyone the same way again. Sherry's gone, and I'm still trying to pick up the pieces of my life, but I'll never forget what she did. And I'll never let myself fall into that kind of trap again. I don't know how to even start this story because the whole thing is so out there. I'm still kind of in disbelief about it. You hear about crazy exes. Sure, this was next level. I didn't think it was possible for someone to completely lose it after a breakup, but John proved me wrong. I used to think the worst thing an ex could do was post a sad song on social media, but no. John wrote a whole damn book about me. And not just any book, but a book that was about 1,000 reasons why he hated me. Yeah, 1,000. It all started like any other relationship. John and I had been dating for almost 2 years. We met in college, both freshmen, and hit it off instantly. He was this artsy guy, a writer, always talking about finding his voice and expressing his truth. Looking back, I should have taken that as a warning sign, but I was young and thought I had it all figured out. He was charming, funny, and honestly, a little bit intense, but I liked that. I thought we were a perfect match, or at least I wanted to believe that. Everything was fine at first, but over time, I started noticing John getting more obsessive. He was always so focused on me, to the point where it started to feel like I was his whole world. He would constantly text me, call me, and want to hang out, even when I told him I needed some space. I thought it was sweet at first, like, wow, he really cares. But eventually, it got suffocating. And then, of course, came the weird little comments. The ones that seemed harmless at first, but when you look back, they were definitely red flags. It didn't take long for the relationship to start crumbling. He had issues with trust, with me hanging out with my friends, with me having a life outside of him. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The breaking point came when I got an internship at a local magazine. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, but instead of being happy for me, John got upset. He said I was ignoring him and putting my career over our relationship. I tried to explain that it was a great opportunity, but he didn't care. He wanted all of me all the time. So we broke up. It wasn't dramatic, just a long conversation where we both admitted that we weren't working anymore. But that's when things took a weird turn. A couple of weeks after we ended things, I heard about John's new project from a mutual friend. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then my friend dropped a bombshell. John had started writing a book all about me. I was confused. What? A book? I didn't think it was real, so I Googled it, and that's when I found it. 1,000 Reasons I Hate Her. Yeah, that's the title. I thought it was some kind of joke at first, like maybe he was using humor to cope or something. But no, the book was real, and it was published. I won't lie, I didn't want to believe it. I thought maybe I was overreacting, but no, the book was available for purchase on Amazon. The description said it was a tell-all about my flaws, how I had ruined his life, and how he had suffered because of me. I almost laughed. Almost. But then I clicked on a sample chapter and my stomach dropped. I was reading words I had never expected to see, words about me, written by the person I once loved. As I read it, it became clear. This wasn't just a book. This was a revenge project. John had taken every little argument, every disagreement, and twisted it into something much darker. He made me out to be this terrible person who didn't care about him, who was selfish and manipulative. The things he wrote about me were so far from the truth, but it didn't matter. In his mind, this was his way of getting back at me. He was making me the villain in our story, and I couldn't do anything about it. I don't even know why he published it. The book bombed, of course. Who would buy something like that? It got terrible reviews with people calling it petty and weird, but John didn't care. He kept promoting it on his social media, sharing excerpts and tagging me in posts. He even started emailing people who had reviewed it, thanking them for the support and talking about how much truth there was in what he wrote. I tried to ignore it at first. I blocked him on everything, but he found new ways to contact me. He emailed me, messaged me from random accounts, and even started showing up at places where I'd be. I felt like I couldn't escape him. It wasn't just a book anymore. It was the constant reminder that he was still obsessed with me, still fixated on getting revenge. And the worst part was, no one really understood how much it was getting to me. To everyone else, it seemed like it was just some dumb book that didn't matter, but to me, it felt like John had taken everything I was and shredded it. The book became the symbol of how far he was willing to go to hurt me, to ruin my reputation. Every time someone brought it up, I felt like I was drowning. It was like he had written this twisted narrative where I was a villain, and no matter how much I tried to defend myself, it didn't matter. His words were out there, spreading. It was almost a year later when things started to calm down. John eventually gave up on the book because, let's face it, nobody cared. He didn't sell more than a few copies, and the reviews were absolutely brutal. But it didn't matter. The damage was already done. I'll never get those months back where I felt like I was constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering if I'd see John's name pop up in some new way. I'm not gonna lie, the whole thing left a mark on me. It changed how I looked at people. I started second-guessing everyone, wondering if they had some hidden agenda or were secretly holding onto a grudge. It's hard not to after something like that. But I learned the hard way that sometimes the people you think you know best can turn into monsters, even if you never saw it coming. The book might have flopped, but the emotional scars lingered far longer. I'll never forget the feeling of seeing my name dragged through the mud by someone who claimed to love me. I don't know if John ever really got over the breakup or if he was just that bitter, but whatever it was, I'm glad that chapter of my life is over. It was one of the strangest, most twisted things I've ever been through, and I still don't fully understand how it went that far. But at least I can say this: I'm done with John, and I'll never let anyone do that to me again. It started off like any other afternoon, but it ended up becoming the most bizarre, twisted, and honestly disturbing thing I've ever had to go through. If someone told me this story and said, "Yeah, that happened to me," I would have thought they were joking. I would have laughed it off. But here I am sharing it with you because trust me, this was not a joke. So let me backtrack a bit and give you some context. I was dating a girl named Selena. She wasn't the usual type I went for, but there was something magnetic about her. She was fiery, a little unpredictable, but I liked that about her. I've always been into people with their own vibe, who weren't afraid to stand out. At first, it was all usual things: dates, fun nights, good conversations. But slowly, I started noticing that Selena wasn't exactly the chill type. She was quick to get angry, and I'm not talking about just little things. No, she would blow up over the smallest stuff. And when I say small, I mean tiny. Like I'd forget to take out the trash, or I'd spend too much time with friends instead of her. But the worst thing I did was introduce her to my goldfish. It sounds dumb, right? Goldfish. It wasn't even a big deal to me at first. I'd had him for years. I named him Merlin. He was this bright orange fish that I got as a kid, and he'd survived every possible mistake I made while caring for him. So by the time I was in my 20s, he was practically family. A goldfish that lived way longer than it should have, but that's how I like to think of him. Merlin was my little companion. Yeah, I know it sounds silly, but whatever. He was a part of my routine. So when Selena came over one evening for the first time at my place, I thought, hey, it's a good opportunity to show her that I have this little weird side, that I care about stuff like this. I never thought she'd react the way she did. She didn't seem particularly interested at first, but she didn't say anything negative either, so I thought, cool, maybe she just wasn't into fish. But as the weeks went by, I started noticing a change in how she acted around Merlin. It wasn't anything huge at first, just a couple of passive-aggressive comments like, "Why do you even bother with that thing? It's just a fish." Or when she'd visit, she'd make snide remarks like, "Oh, look, it's Merlin the fish, still alive after all these years. Doesn't that get boring?" And I'd laugh it off. But soon enough, those little comments turned into something darker. It was like she couldn't stand the fact that Merlin existed, like he was some kind of competition for my attention. I noticed she would sometimes just sit there staring at the tank, like she was plotting something. I didn't think much of it, though. I assumed I was just being paranoid. But then one night, everything changed. Selena had just gotten back from an argument with her friend, and she was furious. I could tell she was in one of her moods, but I didn't expect it to get as bad as it did. I was sitting on the couch watching TV when she stormed into the living room. I wasn't even paying attention to her at first, but then I heard her muttering to herself, almost like she was talking to Merlin. The tension in the room was thick, and I remember thinking, what's going on? I looked over at her and saw her standing in front of the tank. She was staring at it like she was in some kind of trance, her hand resting on the top of the aquarium. I called out her name, but she didn't respond. I was still half distracted by the show, but that's when I heard a splash. I looked up in confusion, and there it was. Selena was holding Merlin in her hand, and in one swift motion, she shoved him down the toilet. It took me a second to process what had just happened. I was frozen. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. She flushed him, just like that. I stood up in shock, trying to speak, but nothing came out. I didn't even know what to say. It wasn't even the fact that she killed my goldfish. It was how casually she'd done it, like it didn't matter, like it didn't matter. She turned around, almost smiling to herself, like she had done something impressive. Her eyes were a little wild, almost like she completely lost touch with reality. I asked her, "What the hell is wrong with you?" But it was too late. The damage was done. I don't know why, but I didn't immediately kick her out. Part of me was in shock, and the other part was honestly kind of scared of her. I didn't know who this person was anymore. She was like a stranger to me. After what she'd just done, I wasn't even sure I could trust her. I stood there, trying to wrap my head around what had just happened. The whole room felt suffocating. I kept thinking, is this really happening? I was still trying to make sense of it when she walked out of the room without saying a word. That was the moment I realized it was over. I didn't speak to Selena for a while after that. At first, I was too upset, too confused. I was still in disbelief, thinking I could wake up from this nightmare. But eventually, I had to face the reality. She wasn't coming back, and to be honest, I didn't want her to. The crazy thing was she didn't even apologize. It's like she didn't even think there was anything wrong with what she'd done. It was just another random outburst for her. I don't know if she ever felt guilty or if she ever even thought about Merlin again, but I couldn't forget it. I couldn't shake the image of her standing there, holding my pet, and flushing him away like he was nothing. That was the last time I ever let anyone get that close to me again. The whole experience was so messed up that I couldn't look at relationships the same way after that. If someone could do that over something as small as a goldfish, who knows what they could do if they were really angry. And no matter how much I tried to move on, the thought of Selena and her complete lack of empathy for something I cared about haunted me. So yeah, that's my story. I had a lot of wild things happen in my life, but nothing comes close to the level of crazy that Selena brought into my world. She flushed my goldfish down the toilet, and in a way, she flushed away whatever trust I had left in people. I used to think that breakups were just emotional, that the pain came from heartache and sadness, but that you eventually move on and get back to normal. At least, that's how I thought things would be after Zach and I broke up. I had no idea what was waiting for me after that. It started small at first, just a few days after the breakup. I started feeling off. Not sad or anything like that, but physically strange. My stomach was always upset. I'd get dizzy at random times, and I felt constantly tired. I thought it was just stress. I mean, we had a pretty messy breakup. Zach had been possessive, controlling, and manipulative, but even after everything, I still felt like crap. Breakups do that to you, right? I figured it was just my body reacting to all the emotional stuff I had been dealing with. But then things started to get worse, much worse. I couldn't focus at work anymore. I'd be sitting at my desk trying to get through a simple email, and the words on the screen would blur. The dizziness would come on strong, and I'd have to close my eyes for a second just to keep from feeling like I was going to pass out. I started napping during the day, something I've never really done before. It wasn't normal, but I convinced myself it was just my body adjusting to the breakup. Then came the headaches. I remember sitting on the couch one evening watching TV when a sharp pain hit the back of my head. It was like a pressure I couldn't escape from. I tried to sleep it off, but the next morning I felt just as bad. I'd go to bed exhausted and wake up even more drained, like I'd never slept at all. By this point, I was starting to get freaked out, so I went to the doctor. They ran tests, but they couldn't find anything physically wrong with me. Stress, they said. Just stress. But I knew something was wrong. I wasn't imagining it. One afternoon, after a particularly rough day at work, I came home to find a small package on my doorstep. I had no idea who it was from, but when I opened it, I found a bunch of medication. There were painkillers, some kind of sleeping pills, and a few bottles of what looked like vitamin supplements. I didn't remember ordering any of this. I hadn't even been feeling sick enough to need anything like that, let alone a bunch of random pills. I checked the receipt inside the package. The name on it was unfamiliar. There was no explanation of where it had come from or why it had been sent. At first, I was confused. I tossed the package aside, but something didn't sit right with me. The dizziness and fatigue were getting worse by the day, and now these random pills appeared out of nowhere. I thought maybe I had ordered them in my sleep-deprived state. Maybe I was just too foggy to remember. But the pills weren't the only thing I found. As I was cleaning out my kitchen a few days later, I came across a bottle of some strange powder in the back of my cabinet. It wasn't something I recognized, and I didn't remember buying it. It was in a bag like one of those cheap, unmarked things you'd find in a bulk store, but there was a label that read Energy Booster. I opened it up and immediately felt uneasy. It had an odd smell, like something toxic. My stomach churned just thinking about it. I went online to see if I could find any information on this stuff, but when I typed in the name of the product, nothing came up. It was like it didn't exist. I felt my heart start to race. Something was definitely off. Why was it in my house? Who had put it there? That's when the memories started flooding back, Zach. I remember a few weeks before we broke up, he'd started making these strange comments about me being tired all the time and not looking like myself. At first, I thought it was just his way of being concerned, but now I realized he was noticing changes I hadn't even seen in myself. He had a way of being overly attentive, almost to the point of feeling like he was monitoring me. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was somehow involved in this, but I had no proof. I decided to confront him. I called him up and asked if he knew anything about the medications and the weird powder I'd found. He played dumb, acting like he had no idea what I was talking about. Of course he did. I knew it. But there was no way to prove it. I couldn't point my finger at him, not without looking crazy. So I dropped it and tried to move on. But the symptoms didn't go away. They got worse. I started to throw up randomly, and my vision would blur to the point where I couldn't even drive. It was like something inside me was slowly shutting down piece by piece. I went back to the doctor, and they ran more tests. They still couldn't find anything physically wrong with me. I was starting to feel desperate. That's when it hit me. I remember the night we'd broken up. Zach had invited me over one last time to talk. I wasn't sure why I agreed, but I did. He made me tea, offered me some snacks. I remember feeling unusually tired after drinking it. I passed it off as just exhaustion, but now I was wondering if that was when it all started. What if he had slipped something in my drink? I started going through my old texts with Zach, looking for any clues that might explain what's happening to me. And there, buried in a message from a few weeks before, I saw something that made my blood run cold. He had sent me a link to a health supplement website. It was something about boosting energy and improving overall health. At the time, I thought it was just him trying to be helpful, but now I saw it for what it really was, a way for him to control my body from the inside out. It was him. Zach had been slipping something to my food and my drinks. He had been drugging me, poisoning me slowly, making me sick on purpose. He'd been playing the concerned ex role, trying to cover up his tracks while wrecking my health. I couldn't believe it, but everything started making sense. The dizziness, the fatigue, the random medications, it was all his doing. I knew I had to confront him again, this time for real. I wasn't sure what I would do when I saw him, but I couldn't just sit back and let him ruin me any longer. I don't know how the story will end. Maybe I'll confront him, maybe I won't. But whatever happens, I can't let him control me anymore. I'm fighting for my health, my life, and I won't let Zach win. At first, it was just a normal, messy breakup. We were together for about 8 months, and things got rocky. We fought a lot, and in the end, I realized we were better off apart. She didn't take it well, but I didn't expect it to go this far. At first, I didn't think much of it. Olivia sent a few texts. Some were angry, some were sad. Nothing too unusual for a breakup, right? But then I started noticing strange things. It wasn't the typical "I miss you" or "why did you leave me" type of stuff anymore. It was different. It was specific. One day, I went to grab lunch at this little taco spot I liked. Nothing special about it, just a quick bite. I didn't tell Olivia where I was going, obviously, but when I opened my phone to check messages, there it was. A comment on one of my posts from Olivia. Hope the tacos were good. The ones at that place are pretty amazing, aren't they? I stared at the screen for what felt like forever. How did she know I was there? I hadn't said anything about it, I hadn't posted any pictures, and I certainly hadn't invited her. But somehow she knew. I brushed it off at first, thinking it was just a weird coincidence. Maybe she was just guessing. Maybe she knew I liked tacos or that I often ate there. But then, a few days later, it happened again. I went to the bookstore, another one of my favorite spots, just to kill some time and browse. As I'm walking down the aisle, checking out the latest fiction releases, I get a notification on my phone. Another comment from Olivia. I didn't know you liked that author. I picked up a book by them last week, too. Small World, huh? At this point, I started to feel a little off. How was she keeping track of where I was? I hadn't told her anything. I hadn't posted anything. But Olivia always seemed to know exactly where I had been, what I'd done, and even what I'd been thinking about. It wasn't just a few random comments here and there. It was every time I went out, every time I did something I used to do when we were together. It felt like she was watching me. Then came the night I went to meet some friends at a bar. Nothing big, just a casual hangout. As soon as I walked in, I saw her sitting at a table by the window, looking directly at me. I tried to keep my cool, walking past her like I hadn't seen her, but my heart was racing. How was she here? We hadn't spoken in days, and I hadn't posted anything about my plans. But there she was, right where I was, like she had known I'd be there. I tried to brush it off again, thinking maybe it was just another coincidence. Maybe she liked the same places I did. But something about it felt wrong. The way she looked at me, like she knew exactly where I was at all times. Things kept getting weirder after that. It wasn't just comments on social media anymore. It was direct interactions. One day, I was at the gym trying to focus on my workout when I saw her at the other end of the room. She didn't look at me, but I could feel her presence. I kept catching glimpses of her in the corner of my eye, and every time I looked up, she was there doing the exact same thing I was doing, just a few steps away. I started to get paranoid. Was I being followed? Was she tracking me somehow? I had no proof, nothing concrete. It could all be just random chance, right? I wanted to believe that, but deep down I knew something wasn't adding up. It wasn't just her showing up in places I went anymore. It was the way she showed up. The fact that it always felt too perfect, too precise. I didn't tell anyone at first. Who would believe me? Who would think my ex was stalking me like that? I started to feel like I was going crazy, like maybe I was just paranoid from the breakup and imagining things. But it didn't stop. Then one day, everything changed. I was getting my car serviced at this local shop I've been going to for years. It was nothing fancy, just a routine oil change and tire check. I dropped off the car, went for a walk around the block while they worked on it. And when I came back, the mechanic asked me to step into the garage. "Hey, Al, I found something in your car," he said, looking a little uncomfortable. "You might want to take a look." I walked over to the car, confused. He pointed to the underside of the vehicle, and there, stuck between the metal of the frame and the bumper, was a small black device. It looked like a GPS tracker. My blood ran cold. My stomach dropped. I asked the mechanic if he was sure, and he nodded. "Yeah, it's a tracker. You'd be surprised how many people use these for personal reasons." His voice trailed off, and I could see the discomfort in his eyes. I wasn't sure if he was trying to avoid the awkwardness of the situation, or if he had an idea of what was going on, but it didn't matter. I felt like I was going to pass out right there in the garage. I stood there for a second, just staring at the tracker. It was like the whole situation suddenly clicked. Olivia had been following me, tracking me through my car. She knew exactly where I was at all times. That explained the weird comments, the random appearances in places I went. But how had she done it? How had she gotten access to my car? Had she followed me without me noticing? Was she tracking me through my phone too? I left the shop that day, feeling more uneasy than I ever had in my life. My mind was racing. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should call the cops or confront Olivia, or maybe both. But I knew one thing for sure: this had gone far beyond just a breakup. I didn't wait long. I had to confront her. I couldn't live with the constant feeling of being watched, of knowing that she knew everything about my life without me telling her. So I went to her apartment, hoping to get some answers. I wasn't sure what I was going to say, but I needed to understand how far her obsession with me had gone. When I knocked on her door, I half expected her to open it, give me some excuse, and deny everything. But when she did open the door, she didn't look surprised. She didn't even look guilty. It was like she was waiting for me. She just stared at me, and I could see the coldness in her eyes. It wasn't the Olivia I'd used to know. It was like she was someone else entirely. I asked her straight up if she had been tracking me. She didn't deny it. She didn't apologize. She just said, I wanted to know where you were. I wanted to be close to you again. I don't know how long we stood there, but it felt like hours. Eventually, I left. I didn't feel any relief. It wasn't over. It wasn't even close. I'd never thought my breakup with Spencer would turn into something that felt like a real-life horror movie. Breakups are messy, sure, but this one, it was different. It started off pretty normal. Well, as normal as any breakup can be, but then it turned into something I couldn't ignore, something that started creeping into every part of my life. At first, it wasn't so bad. After we split, Spencer would send me texts. I ignored them, of course. We'd been together for almost a year, and honestly, things had been getting bad near the end. The breakup wasn't the cleanest, but it wasn't like I left him for some major reason. It was just time. I wasn't happy, and he wasn't either, so we went our separate ways. But Spencer didn't seem to get the memo. The first few texts were the usual, I miss you, and we talk stuff. I didn't respond, thinking he'd get the hint. But he didn't. It just kept going. Texts, voicemails, random emojis. It was annoying at first, but I wasn't worried. People go through phases after breakups. He'd move on, and so would I, or at least that's what I thought. But then things started to get weird. One morning, I went to my favorite cafe. It's this quiet little place I've been going to for months. I walked in, ordered my usual black coffee, no sugar, and found a seat by the window. It was my spot, you know. I liked the peace and quiet. But as soon as I sat down, I had this nagging feeling. I couldn't shake it. I glanced around, and there he was. Spencer, sitting at a table in the corner, barely looking at me, but still very much there. I thought maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I was just paranoid, but there was no way. It had been a while since we broke up. I hadn't seen him anywhere, and now, out of all places, he was here. I tried not to make it obvious. I focused on my coffee, on the book in front of me, but I couldn't help it. Every time I looked up, he was still there. I don't know if he was staring at me or not, but it felt like he was. That creepy, unsettling feeling in the pit of my stomach wouldn't go away. I told myself I was just being paranoid, that maybe it was all just a coincidence. After all, it's a public place. People go there all the time. Maybe he just happened to be there too. But then it happened again. The next day, I went to the gym, hoping to blow off some steam. It was my place to zone out, get my head in a better space. I didn't think much of it as I walked in, tossed my gym bag in a locker, and started my warm-up. But then, just as I was getting into the groove, I saw him again. Spencer. Standing by the weights, staring off into the distance, like he was waiting for something or someone. My stomach twisted. How was he here? Why was he here? It wasn't even a gym we'd gone to together. I hadn't seen him in weeks. Why would he suddenly show up at my gym? I didn't approach him, of course. I just finished my workout trying to focus, but the whole time I kept sneaking glances to see if he was watching me. And every time I did, it felt like he was watching me back. I thought maybe I was just being dramatic, but the feeling of being watched wouldn't go away. When I left, I didn't look back. I tried to convince myself that I was just overthinking it, that I was going through the motions of being weird after a breakup, but it didn't stop. A few days later, I had a late shift at work. I was managing a boutique at the time, and I was wrapping up after a long day, checking stock and making sure everything was set for the next day. As I was locking the door, I looked up and saw a familiar face standing outside the window. Spencer. I froze. He was just standing there across the street, staring at the store like he was waiting for me to come out. My heart raced, and I felt that weird, anxious twinge in my chest. Why was he here? Why was he waiting outside my work? I didn't know what to do. I stood there, half hidden behind the door, hoping he wouldn't see me. I waited until he walked away before I rushed out to my car. But this time I couldn't tell myself I was just being paranoid. I knew this wasn't a coincidence anymore. There was something off about it. Over the next week, I started seeing him more and more. Always in places I went to, always just there. The cafe, the gym, my work. Every time I thought I had escaped him, I'd turn around, and there he was. He never came up to me. He didn't say anything. But I could feel him there, watching me. It was like he was stalking me, but hiding in plain sight. Finally, one day I snapped. I'd had enough. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to confront him. I ran into him at the cafe again. Of course he was there. He didn't see me at first, so I walked up to him, trying to keep calm, but my voice shook as I said his name. He turned around, a blank expression on his face. He looked surprised to see me, but also like he wasn't. It was that weird, unsettling thing where you could tell he'd been expecting it, even though I hadn't said anything. I asked him point blank why he'd been following me around. I told him I wasn't crazy, that I had noticed him everywhere I went. He just shrugged it off. I was just here, he said, acting like it was all some coincidence. You go to the same places, don't you? I guess I do too. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. The way he said it, so calm, so collected, like he wasn't doing anything wrong, made my skin crawl. He kept playing it off like nothing was weird about it, like we were both just coincidentally in the same spot all the time. At that moment, something in me broke. Was I paranoid? Maybe. Or maybe he was gaslighting me into thinking I was imagining it all. I couldn't tell anymore. I walked away from him, my heart racing, but my head spinning in confusion. I don't know where Spencer is now. I don't know if he ever stopped showing up at the places I go. But after that day, I started avoiding everything. I changed gyms, changed my coffee spot, even took a different route to work. But I never fully felt safe again. I'll never know if Spencer was just obsessed with me or if he was always planning to make me feel like I was a crazy one. Either way, he got what he wanted. He made me feel like I was losing my mind. And that's the scariest thing of all. I've never been a big social media guy. I mean, I have an account like everyone else, but I don't post pictures of my food or update my status every hour. So when I started dating Ginny, I figured it would be something casual. She was an influencer with a decent following, about 20K on Instagram. At first, it was cool. We had fun, went on trips together, posted a few pictures here and there. I wasn't one of those guys who cared much about being on her feed. I didn't mind it at all. But then things started changing. And when we broke up, that's when it all went south fast. Ginny was one of those people who lived for the attention. Everything she did had to be documented. Every detail had to be shared, and every little moment turned into content. I used to joke with her about it, but after we broke up, I realized I wasn't the joke anymore. I was the punchline. It wasn't long after we ended things that I started seeing posts about me. I didn't know what to make of it at first. I figured maybe she was venting, We had a messy breakup. It happens. But the more I saw, the more it hit me. She wasn't just venting. She was turning me into a villain. I hadn't done anything to her. Sure, I wasn't perfect. And yeah, I probably could have handled the breakup better. But I wasn't abusive. I wasn't some monster she was making me out to be. But on her Instagram, it looked like I was. Her stories started showing up every day, little snippets of her life with these captions, like trying to heal from the trauma of being with someone so toxic, or when you realize you were emotionally abused by someone you trusted. I didn't know how to respond to it. I wanted to text her to tell her to stop, but I also knew that if I did, she'd only spin it into more content. I tried to keep my head down, ignore it, let it blow over, but it didn't. One day, I woke up to a message from my sister. She was pissed. "What the hell is Ginny posting of you?" she asked. "People are talking. Everyone at work's seen her stories. Is it true?" I could feel my heart sink. My sister had never been one to pull punches, and if she was asking me, that meant she had heard something. That meant it was real. Ginny had turned her audience into a courtroom, and I was a defendant in some trial I didn't even know about. I didn't know how to explain it. I'd always been the guy who kept things low-key. I had no idea what kind of abuse Ginny was talking about. I didn't yell, I didn't put her down, I didn't hit her. But that didn't matter. She had a voice. She had an audience. And now they were all looking at me like I was the worst guy in the world. I went on her page hoping I was wrong, hoping maybe it wasn't as bad as it seemed. But as I scrolled through her feed, my stomach twisted. It was worse. She posted a picture of us together from a trip we'd taken a few months before. She captioned it, "When you're stuck with someone who doesn't care about you, it's so hard to escape." The comments were pouring in. Everyone was asking her how she'd gotten out, giving her support, sharing their own horror stories. It was like I wasn't even human anymore. I was a character in her narrative. Over the next few days, it got even worse. She started tagging me in posts, calling me a manipulator and gaslighter. She would share these vague stories like little puzzles that made it seem like I was some kind of monster. And all I could do was watch helpless as people I knew, people I'd grown up with, started messaging me, asking if it was true. One night, I got a call from my best friend, Jason. He sounded confused, almost like he didn't know what to believe. Dude, is everything okay? People are saying stuff, and I'm not sure who to trust. I didn't even know how to answer him. How could I explain something that wasn't real? How could I convince anyone that I wasn't the guy Jenny was painting me to be when all they had to do was scroll through her Instagram and see this emotional, broken woman with thousands of followers? I had no way of disproving what she was saying. It didn't stop there. Jenny got smarter with it. She started posting screenshots of messages from me, messages that were completely out of context, twisted to make it look like I was stalking her or sending her threatening texts. I tried to reach out to her, to explain that this was all just a misunderstanding, but she blocked me on everything. It didn't matter. She had her followers, her audience, and she didn't need me to tell my side of the story. I was being dragged through the mud, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I went to the police once, just to see if I had any kind of case, but all they told me was that unless I could prove something, they couldn't do anything. It felt like the world was watching me, like every single person I knew had already made up their mind. Even my own family was starting to ask questions. My mom pulled me aside one night and said, "I don't know what's going on, but you need to make sure you're not doing something to cause all this." That hurt more than anything, to feel like even the people who were supposed to trust me didn't. I tried to focus on work, on anything that would keep my mind off the mess Ginny had created, but it was everywhere. I couldn't go on Instagram without seeing a post of hers. I couldn't scroll through Twitter without someone retweeting her story. It was like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't escape from. And then one day, out of nowhere, it stopped. Ginny deleted all of the posts, all the stories, and even erased me from her feed. There were no apologies, no explanation, just silence. I never heard from her again. It was like she had moved on, and I was left there to pick up the pieces. To this day, I still don't know what her endgame was. Maybe she just wanted to hurt me, or maybe it was all about maintaining the image of the perfect victimized influencer. But the damage had already been done. I'm sure people still believe it. You can't just erase something like that. The worst part, I'll never really know why she did it. I don't know what went through her head when she decided to tear me apart like that. But all I know is that it was real. It hurt, and there's no way to take it back. I honestly never thought a breakup could mess with someone's head this much, especially when it was over something so stupid. It was just supposed to be a normal, dumb relationship like any other. We were young, you know? You meet someone, you date for a while, and then one day you break up. It happens. But the way Nathan destroyed my life afterward, that wasn't just some high school drama. It was insane. It started right after we broke up. One minute we're hanging out, laughing about nothing. The next he's acting like I'm some sort of disease. At first, I figured it was just the usual breakup stuff. He's mad, he's hurt, whatever. People get emotional when things end. But then, one by one, people started to look at me differently. Friends started asking weird questions, like they knew something I didn't. It was like there was this cloud hanging over my head, but I didn't understand why. At first, I thought it was nothing. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. But then I heard the whispers. It was at my cousin's party of all places. I had barely stepped through the door when I saw one of my old friends from school, Sarah. She looked at me like I had just kicked her dog or something. I waved, trying to keep it cool, but her face was unreadable. She pulled me aside and asked, "Is it true?" I just stared at her, confused. Is what true? Her eyes darted around the room, checking if anyone was listening. "The stuff Nathan's been saying about you," she whispered. I felt my stomach drop, but I wasn't about to make a scene. What stuff? Sarah took a deep breath like she didn't want to say it out loud, but then she did. "He told everyone you weren't, well, you weren't any good. That you were, terrible." I blinked, not sure I was hearing her right. What are you talking about? But it was too late. That single comment felt like someone had just pulled the rug out from under me. Everything inside me went cold. I didn't even know what to say. Nathan, the guy I had trusted, had actually gone and told everyone that I was bad at, well, whatever. I felt like I was in a bad dream, but it was real. Sarah didn't say much else after that. She just apologized and walked away, leaving me standing there trying to process what had just happened. The rumors didn't stop there. Over the next few weeks, it felt like I couldn't go anywhere without hearing someone whisper behind my back, Even people I barely knew were suddenly acting weird around me. I'd be hanging out with friends, and then I'd catch them giving me these looks, like they had this secret. They wouldn't even bring it up directly, but it was all over their faces. That was the worst part, not being able to get a straight answer, not knowing who was in on it, who believed it, who was laughing about it. But every time I asked Nathan what the hell he had done, he just acted like I was crazy, like I was imagining it all. I didn't do anything, you're being dramatic, he'd say, but I knew better. I didn't want to lose my friends, but it was happening anyway. Everyone started pulling away, acting distant. I remember one night, hanging out with a group, and someone joked about how I was so shy around guys. I could see the way they looked at me after that. It wasn't funny. It wasn't cute. It was like I had a scar on my forehead that everyone could see, but I couldn't. It wasn't just my friends, either. My family got pulled into it too. My older brother pulled me aside one evening, his face serious like he was about to lecture me. We'd heard things, he said. I wanted to scream. I had no idea what to say, no way to explain myself, but there was no way around it. The rumors had spread to the family now. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, trying to stay calm. But he wasn't buying it. You know what I'm talking about, he said. Everyone's talking about how Nathan said you weren't. How he said things didn't go well. You didn't tell anyone you had problems, but it's obvious. The word problems burned into me like a branding iron. I hadn't told anyone about any of that stuff because it didn't matter. But now, because of Nathan, it seemed like it was the only thing people cared about. My life was a joke to everyone. The worst part wasn't even the rumors themselves. It was how I didn't know who I could trust anymore. My own best friend Lily kept distancing herself from me. She wouldn't meet my eyes anymore. Whenever I called her, it felt like she was on edge, like she was afraid someone might find out she was still talking to me. I tried to stand up for myself, but no one cared. Nathan had made it clear. If he said it, it was truth. Even people I thought I could count on didn't want to get involved. It all kept backing away, and I was left to deal with this mess alone. I kept telling myself it would blow over, that people would forget, but it didn't work like that. Days turned into weeks, and it only got worse. Nathan would show up at parties looking all smug like he had won. He was enjoying every second of watching me fall apart. And I could feel myself unraveling a little more every day. The girl I used to be was disappearing, replaced by someone bitter, angry, and paranoid. I couldn't go to the grocery store without wondering if someone was whispering about me behind the aisles. I couldn't go online without seeing some meme, some joke that was obviously aimed at me. It was everywhere, and it never stopped. I knew I couldn't keep going like this. It wasn't just affecting my friendships or family anymore. It was messing with my head. I had to do something. I couldn't let Nathan win. But what could I do? I had already tried confronting him, but he just laughed it off like it was all a big joke. Then it hit me. Nathan had destroyed my life because he could, because no one had cared enough to stop him. But maybe if I made it known that I wasn't going to let him have this power anymore, maybe then I could start taking back control. I stopped avoiding people. I didn't let them stare or whisper. I started confronting the rumors head on. It didn't fix everything, and it didn't bring my friends back. But it felt like a step, at least. Nathan was still a part of my life, haunting it from the shadows. I was done letting him win. And that was the first time in months that I finally felt like I could breathe again. I thought the breakup with Adam would be the hardest part. Turns out, it was just the beginning of something way worse. When we ended things, it wasn't the explosive, dramatic split I imagined. We weren't screaming at each other or throwing things around. It was more of a quiet, messy end where we both sort of drifted away. Still, even after everything was said and done, I never thought he would be the type to seek revenge. But I had no idea what he was capable of until I started feeling it slowly at first. At first, it seemed like just bad luck. The kind of stuff that anyone could brush off. I'd get messages out of nowhere from people I hadn't heard from in ages, like old friends or distant family members. They'd say things like, "Hey, I was thinking about you today," or "I miss hanging out, we should reconnect sometime soon." It felt nice at first. Who doesn't want to hear from people who care about them, right? But something felt off. The messages were always worded a little too perfectly, almost as if they were rehearsed. The tone was just a little too sweet, the phrasing a little too specific. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it made me feel weird. One time, I got a message from a friend who I'd lost touch with years ago. She was asking me how I'd been and talking about how much she missed me. I thought, Okay, that's nice. But it didn't take long for me to start questioning it. For one, I had recently gone through my entire contact list and removed people I hadn't talked to in forever, and she wasn't one of them. So, how would she know what I was up to? Plus, there was something off about the way she phrased certain things. It didn't sound like her at all. It got worse from there. I was finally offered a job I had been working toward for months. I had nailed the interview, my resume was solid, and I thought everything was in the bag. They told me I was their top candidate and the job was practically mine. I was ecstatic. But then, out of nowhere, they canceled the offer, citing internal changes as the reason. They told me they'd be in touch, but I never heard from them again. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe it was just the economy or something, but it kept happening. Another job offer, this time from a company I had really admired. They called me in for the final interview, said they loved my qualifications, and again, I thought I was in the clear. But then, like clockwork, a few days before they were supposed to call it a decision, they emailed me to say they decided to move forward with another candidate. This wasn't just bad luck. This was starting to feel deliberate. It was like something or someone was holding me back, but I couldn't figure out who or what it was. As I started to look closer, the pattern emerged. There was a theme to all these strange things happening to me. Somehow, Adam had wormed his way back into my life, but not in a way I could easily confront him. Instead, he was using other people, manipulating them without them even knowing it. I didn't know how he was doing it, but I knew it was him. That was when things started getting even weirder. I had plans to meet up with some friends one weekend, and they all bailed out last minute. At first, I thought it was just coincidence, but when the same thing happened with another group of people, I started to wonder. My friend Sarah told me she'd been feeling under the weather and couldn't make it, but the weird thing was when I ran into her a few days later, she acted completely normal. She even apologized for canceling. It wasn't just Sarah, it was one person after another. I'd make plans, and each time, something would come up. Sometimes it was a work emergency, sometimes it was family issues, but the timing was always a little too perfect. It was like someone had gotten inside their heads, convincing them not to hang out with me. The isolation began to feel overwhelming. I wasn't just being let down by the universe, I was being shut out. I felt like I was living in some kind of bubble where everyone around me was either backing away or turning on me. I started second-guessing everything I knew. Was I really that much of a burden to be around? Had I done something to make people hate me? Or was something else going on? And that's when I noticed it. It was subtle, almost impossible to catch at first. But when I took a step back, the truth hit me like a ton of bricks. Adam wasn't just sending fake messages through fake accounts. He had been orchestrating all of this, feeding information to the people around me and subtly turning them against me. It wasn't even obvious, just little nudges here and there, convincing people not to show up, canceling plans when I was about to have a breakthrough. It was like he was making sure I stayed small, that I stayed trapped in this weird, isolated bubble where everything I touched fell apart. The worst part, he had never contacted me directly, not once. Everything was so indirect, so well hidden. He was hiding in the shadows, pulling strings and watching my life unravel without ever needing to lift a finger. No one would have believed me if I told them. No one would have believed that Adam, the guy I thought I had gotten rid of, was still somehow pulling the strings of my life. There were nights when I'd sit at my desk, staring at my phone, wondering how much longer I could take it. I tried to talk to a few of my closest friends, but every time I brought it up, they would tell me I was overthinking it. They'd brush me off, thinking I was just upset over the breakup. But it wasn't just that. It was everything falling apart. My career, my relationships, my sense of self. It wasn't until I ran into an old friend of Adam's at a coffee shop that things started to make sense. We caught up for a minute, and when I mentioned some of the weird things going on, she just looked at me wide-eyed. Wait, you think it's Adam? He's been weird lately. I don't know, but he's been acting like he's up to something. I didn't need to hear anything more. I already knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to sit back and let him tear me apart from the shadows. I started paying attention to every little detail, gathering screenshots, messages, anything that could prove he was behind it all. It took time, but eventually I had enough. I found out who he was talking to, who he had been manipulating. I exposed everything to the people around me, people I thought I had lost. And when I finally confronted him, Adam didn't even deny it. He just smiled like he'd won. But in the end, I was the one who won. I didn't need him in my life to keep going, and I certainly didn't need him to control it. Adam's revenge was never about big, dramatic moments. It was the slow, quiet unraveling of everything I thought I knew. But in the end, I got back on track. Maybe he thought he could destroy me from the inside out, but he didn't. He just made me stronger. Well then, never expected my ex, Chloe, to be the type to go all in on ruining my life. When we broke up, I thought I was finally free. It wasn't an easy split, but it wasn't like we had any unfinished business. The relationship was toxic, and the best thing for both of us was to move on. And that's exactly what I was doing. I had just landed my dream job, a position I've been working toward for years. It was a kind of opportunity that could really launch my career. I left my old life behind, and things were starting to feel like they were falling into place. But of course, that's when things started to get weird. At first, it was just a few odd things here and there. I'd walk into the office and see a colleague looking at me like I was some kind of fraud. I shrugged it off, thinking maybe I was just paranoid. New job, new environment. Of course, people were going to be judgmental. But then the little things started happening. My email account started acting strange. I find emails I didn't remember receiving in my inbox. Even worse, some of my sent emails were missing. Important ones, the kind of emails that had a lot of personal details about my projects and ideas. I figured I had made some rookie mistake. Maybe I'd messed up some settings, but things started to escalate. Files started disappearing off my work laptop. Not just random files, crucial ones. I'd open up my documents folder and find entire reports gone, things I had spent hours working on. When I checked the recently deleted folder, there was nothing. It was like they were erased from existence. It was getting to the point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. One afternoon, I walked into the break room to grab a coffee and overheard two coworkers talking about me. They didn't see me at first, so I stood there for a few seconds, just listening. The conversation was about some mistakes I had apparently made in a report. The weird thing, the report they were talking about wasn't even the one I had submitted. They were talking about a version of the report that had been edited, a version I didn't remember writing. When I asked my boss about it later, she just brushed it off. Maybe you're just missing something, she said, but the look she gave me made me feel like I was the one in the wrong. It was like no one believed me. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. I started checking everything twice, triple checking emails, making sure all my work was saved. But the more I looked, the worse things got. I started to feel like I was being watched, like someone was always one step ahead of me, anticipating my moves. And then it hit me. Chloe had worked in the same industry. Not in the exact same field, but close enough that she knew how to navigate the system. She knew what companies I was applying to, she knew the type of work I did, and most importantly, she knew my weaknesses. She knew me better than anyone else. It wasn't just that she had insider knowledge, she was using it against me. I remembered something from when we were still together. Chloe had this habit of always wanting to help me with work-related stuff. She'd offer advice on how to improve my resume or suggest ways to approach a difficult project. She'd always say she was just trying to be supportive, but in hindsight, it was like she was slowly getting all the information she needed to undermine me later on. It was subtle at first, but now I could see it clearly. She was always watching, always learning, and never noticed until it was too late. Over the next few weeks, I started to connect the dots. I wasn't just paranoid. Chloe had infiltrated my professional life. It wasn't just my work that was getting messed up. It was my reputation too. My colleagues started acting strangely around me, like they didn't trust me. My boss seemed distant, and the more I tried to reach out for help, the more they all backed away. I even caught Chloe's name coming up in some conversations. She had been applying to the same positions I had been, the ones I thought I had nailed. And she wasn't just applying to them, she was getting hired. And when she wasn't hired, she was planting rumors about me. I realized she had been spreading false stories about me at work. Oh, how I wasn't trustworthy, how I had taken credit for things that weren't mine, how I was unprofessional. I didn't have proof, but I started to see her name popping up in all the wrong places. It was like she was strategically positioning herself to take over my career one step at a time. I tried to talk to HR, but they didn't take me seriously. They thought I was just overreacting, but the more I looked into it, the more I realized how deep Chloe had sunk her claws into everything. She knew how to manipulate people, how to play the game. She was playing the role of the concerned ex, and no one suspected a thing. I started documenting everything, every email that disappeared, every conversation that didn't make sense, every odd look I got. I kept a folder on my laptop, but even that started getting tampered with. It felt like I was fighting an invisible enemy. I couldn't prove anything, but I knew it was Chloe. It was maddening. I would sit in my apartment late at night, staring at my computer, wondering how far she would go to ruin me. I was losing everything: my job, my credibility, my peace of mind. I felt like I was drowning in this silent war, and I had no idea how to fight back. Then I caught a break. One day, I was sitting at my desk trying to get through some work when I noticed something strange. A small notification popped up on my screen. It was an email with an attachment labeled "Updated Report." The sender's name was unfamiliar, but when I opened it, my heart stopped. It was a copy of the report I had submitted weeks ago, the one I had been accused of plagiarizing. But this version wasn't mine, it was Chloe's. She had edited it, made it look like it was hers, and she'd sent it to HR. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't just keep sitting back, letting Chloe destroy me from the shadows. I had to go on the offense. I started gathering every piece of evidence I could find: screenshots, emails, documents, everything. I put it all together and presented it to HR. It wasn't easy. They didn't want to delete me, but eventually the proof was too much to ignore. Chloe was fired. It wasn't instant, but after a thorough investigation, they figured it out. She had used her knowledge of my work to steal from me, ruin my reputation, and even manipulate my colleagues into thinking I was the one causing problems. It didn't fix everything, though. My reputation at work had been tarnished. Some people never believed what had happened. But I held on. I kept my job, I kept pushing forward, and I kept working. Slowly, the rumors faded, and I got my confidence back. I learned the hard way that breakups aren't just about the emotional aftermath. Sometimes they can bleed into every part of your life, even the parts you think are safe. Chloe may have tried to destroy my career, but in the end, she didn't win.